And welcome back in for another episode of the Ball Boys podcast. Of course, Dylan and Mehl joined here by Nolan Foster for another episode of this podcast. We got NFL coming for you today, NBA tomorrow, Eastern Conference preview. I was going to do West, but I feel like all the movement before the season in the East has taken place. Sorry, Sixers fans. And then we'll do the West the following week. And then, of course, on Friday, we got our Best Bets preview show. Speaking of those best bets, let's hop into them. Nolan, you promised a 3-0 week. You did not deliver. But you got a winning week. You are now 6-6 on the season, so you are even money. If you count the VIG, technically you're still down money. But we don't need to go that far for the purposes of what we're doing here. On the week, Jags -3. We both did. The Jacksonville Jaguars covered handily. We had predicted a more of an offensive outpouring when, in fact, Desmond Ritter is Forky from Toy Story, a.k.a. trash, because he's bad, man. He's bad. Arthur Smith had to answer questions yesterday if he'd be the starter going forward. That's how bad he is.
That's how you know.
And, as much as we talked about the Jets going and getting Kirk Cousins, the Atlanta Falcons, man, they go get a veteran quarterback, they could compete for that division. Kyle Pitts, fantasy owners, once again, whoever has them, tear goes out for you. You also gave us the winning leg of Seahawks -1. You predicted that pretty well. Giants are ass. Seahawks will go in there and do the job. That's pretty much exactly what happened during that game. It wasn't the most entertaining. I actually did call the Witherspoon pick 6 moments before it happened, in that I was telling you pre-show about that fantasy matchup, and my buddy was like, sweet, if the Giants score here, then the Seahawks will have to come back out and they can throw the ball to DK. And I said, nah, the Giants are about to run all this clock, get to the red zone, and pick 6 Witherspoon. And not only that, but as they're going down the field, I'm like, and that's the rookie, Devin Witherspoon, capping off a big night. And then it happened. I freaked out. I wish it was recorded. But unfortunately, you also gave the leg of Cincinnati -2.5. I want to spend just a minute on this leg, because what is the problem in Cincinnati? Is it Joe Burrow? Is it Zach Taylor? Is it their offensive coordinator? Is it just bad luck to start the year? Jamar Chase is pissed. Bengals fans are pissed. You're pissed because you bet on them.
Yeah, bro. I mean, I think it's just a combination of their O-line. Burrow's probably still hurt. He hasn't got a lot of reps in. Zach Taylor, he has some issues. There's just a lot going on in that locker room, and I think that's really the biggest concern. So they pretty much have to wait until the bye week. Hopefully they could go even. I'm not sure if it's week 6, week 7.
I believe it's week 7 they're bye.
Okay, so they could maybe get 2 more wins and then maybe be 500 into the bye. That's the best hope.
I think
for
they
Cincinnati.
got some tough games, though, man.
Yeah, I don't know who they play, but we better hope that's the case. They could do that. So it's bad there.
Yeah, I had high hopes for Cincinnati coming into the year, and you got to think T. Higgins' contract year. They didn't extend him. They chose not to trade him. Maybe there's the potential that you do move him. They have the Cardinals in Seattle, so the Cardinals, it's winnable. That's in Arizona, and then they host Seattle, so Seattle's to the East Coast. The thing for me is, and we'll see where they end up, but Jamar Chase has just been validated and proven right. He said at the beginning of the season that he thought Joe Burrow should sit for the first 4 or 5 weeks, and they'd be fine to make the comeback once he's healthy, whatever that may be. And Joe Burrow didn't sit, and they probably have the same record that they would have had with Trevor Siemian at this point. Maybe they would have been 0-4, but at least Joe Burrow would have been healthy. Because now you're in a situation where with this calf injury, it hasn't healed at all. It's just kind of stagnant as to where it's at, and it's not going to heal until he rests. But it's almost too late to rest. Because if you, on top of this 1-3 stretch, put in an 0-4 or another 1-3 stretch, now you're at a 2-6, 1-7 deficit that you're just not going to come back from. So the Bengals' injury management of Joe Burrow has been subpar, but so is their offensive play calling. I mean, it's just so basic. And I don't know if that's because the OC knows the limitations of Joe Burrow and is just trying to hope that hopefully you can get the ball to the playmakers. But, like you said, that offensive line then doesn't get them the time to. It's a mess in Cincinnati. And when we go to my picks, I also gave you a 2-1 week. I moved to 8-4 in the year. 2-1, that's my specialty. I hope you guys aren't making parlays because you'd be losing. But if you're going straight up, you will be winning money on these picks. I also had Jags -3. Like we said, Des Murder's ass and Trevor Lawrence in London is good. I gave you Bucks +5.5. They won outright. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers always play the Saints so well. Um, Even with a Mike Evans injury, they get out of there with a win. Going into the bye week, 3-1. Baker Mayfield leading that division. Uh, I told you guys a couple weeks ago they're this year's Seattle. Should have listened then. And I also gave you Chiefs -8.5. If Patrick Mahomes had got in at the end zone there, I would have had a 3-0 week. Patrick Mahomes makes the unselfish play, costing me a perfect week. It is what it is. It took the Jets, Zach Wilson probably having the best game of his career, Patrick Mahomes having one of the worst, and Patrick Mahomes sliding at the goal line for that bet not to hit. So I felt pretty good about the analysis and the process still with this week. So we both have a 2-1 winning week. Nolan 6-6. I move to 8-4. But let's get into some analysis. The Buffalo Bills. I feel like that. What is it? Like that song I told you long ago. The Bills, man, they're legit. 3-1 now, leading the division. They win 48-20. Josh Allen has pretty much a perfect game of football. 21 of 25. I believe he had 4 touchdown passes. He had the touchdown run. Stephon Diggs, monster day, 6 catches, over 100 yards, 3 touchdowns. The Bills just came out and dominated the Dolphins. And I don't want to overreact. I want to, what we saw from the Dolphins for the first 3 weeks, everybody had them as a top 3 team in the league. And I'm not sure how far down they're supposed to drop. But after what I saw on Sunday, I have serious doubts on if this team can compete in December and January in bad weather on the road games if need be. The 1 seed for Miami feels very, very important when it comes to having the playoffs run through Miami. I'm also not sure if in a defensive game without Jalen Ramsey back, if they're built, the top teams can get stops. Eagles, Niners, Cowboys, they all got elite level defenses that can get stops. The Chiefs have shown in the past they can get stops. The Bills with Von Miller coming back, it sucks what happened to Tre'Davious White. We'll see there. But they've proven in this game that they could stop Miami from time to time. Miami, I'm wondering if in the big game they'll be able to play to that level of competition. Even Baltimore is more equipped for big playoff football. So, as our resident Bills non-believer, after seeing this game, do you believe in the Buffalo Bills?
All right, so first of all, I picked the Bills to win on Sunday because me personally, I do not believe in the Dolphins whatsoever, and I think Tua is not him. When he plays against good teams, good opponents, this is what happens. It happened last year. It's just the Dolphins culture, and like you said, a really good point you were making is in December, January, like they need everything to go right, weather-wise, an opponent to really like put on those points because you saw on Sunday they were struggling. Their emotions weren't working, their speed wasn't working, and the Bills were like really good stopping their offense. So for me, I think the Bills, they did impress me. I think they should be pretty solid throughout the season. But I still want to see how they match up against really like the AFC top dogs, and when they play
Yeah.
the Eagles and whatnot. But they do look pretty good. So for me, I think it's more so with the Dolphins not looking as good than I would give the Bills credit, but they did have a really good, impressive win for me.
Yeah. And for Buffalo, we've seen them have multiple 13-win seasons in the past. We know that they are a regular season juggernaut. The question is, what do they do when the playoffs come around? You know, at a certain point, winning in the regular season is fine, but they're past that. You know, it was cool the first time it happened, and the second time, something to pat their back on, something that the Bills fans hadn't seen in a while at that point. But, you do it for 3 or 4 straight seasons with no Super Bowl appearance to show for it. Um, it starts to become a little less meaningful. I joked on a video I did on my channel yesterday. I said how ironic would it be if the year that everybody started fading the Bills, because they've been like the media sweetheart team. Josh Allen goes out there and wins MVP, and they finally make their run after everybody hopped off the bandwagon. I
It's
mean,
possible.
it's possible. We'll see. Um, but I'm excited as somebody who has a future on the Bills to win the Super Bowl. It was my birthday present to my dad, who's a Bills fan, so I threw 5 units on Bills Super Bowl and told him
Okay.
if they win, that's your present. If not, at least you had a fun ride with it. So I'm gonna be real jealous though if they win, handing him the payout. And then there were two undefeated teams remain: our Philadelphia Eagles and the San Francisco 49ers. I didn't know which team to talk about, so I threw them both in one segment. The Eagles, Commanders play them tough every single time. If you're not an Eagles fan, this win may have seemed like not an impressive win to you. I get that. Every time the Commanders come to Philly, it's a close game. Every time we go to Washington, we destroy them. I don't know why. I can't understand the mechanics on it. The Commanders get up for the city of Philadelphia, I guess. I don't know. 34-31 win in overtime. The Eagles may have the best kicker in all of football in Jake Elliott. Justin Tucker, obviously, we pay our respects to him, but Jake Elliott may be the guy going forward. The Eagles' offense looked better. I will say that. The passing game looked fluid. A.J. Brown, a really good day. Devonta Smith had some nice catches. Would love to see Dallas Goedert involved more every single week. Nick Sirianni has the same quote. Yeah, it's a guy we got to get the ball to more. And I believed him after week 1. I am starting to not believe him after week 4. The run game, it was fine. That's a really, really good Washington defensive line. Washington's defense is never healthy, which is why they never get the credit as being a top-tier defense. But they were healthy this week. Jonathan Allen, Montez Sweat, Chase Young, Forbes. Those guys are ballers. Ron Rivera, a defensive-minded coach, so having the Washington defense step up, not surprising. Their secondary, Jonathan Allen said it. It was impressed me. They were able to run a lot of man coverage, and they were able to lock up the Eagles receivers and put Jalen Hurts in some uncomfortable positions where he was getting sacked or running for a yard and then sliding. It was a real grinded out football game. But ultimately, the better team won. Hindsight, if you're Washington, you probably go for 2 after scoring that touchdown. But I get it. You have a shot to go win in Philly. Momentum's on your side. Ride it into overtime. I don't hate it. Some people were dissing Ron Rivera. I think that's just a hindsight move. I would have gone to overtime in the moment probably. This Washington team, though, they could be a wild card team. I'll say that. They've got the pieces for Philly. They haven't played their best football for a full game yet, and they're 4-0. So they got 2 more weeks to figure it out before Miami comes to town. And I know we just talked about Miami is not an impressive team, but the way to beat Philly is deep, and they got the guys to do it. So Philly's got to figure it out. How are you feeling? Any more or less confident in the Eagles after this game?
I'm about the same for me. Like I said on the pod on Friday, Washington plays them well. That's why the spread was a little bit high for me, because it could have been either way. But for me, the thing that does worry me is that Eagles secondary. I know Sidney Brown was out, but they're struggling a little bit. And the Commanders, they do have a decent offense, but it's not high powered,
Yeah,
and they should not be allowing that many points and yards against this team. There's so many times they get the stop, like last year, like they would get these stops when they needed it, and then on the game Sunday, it was just every other down. It was just happening. So for me, offensively, they were fine. Defensively, they need some help. So hopefully this Sunday they play the Rams, and they did get a good win on Sunday, but the O line is not that good. So the D line better feast on them and maybe get some turnovers for the secondary.
yeah,
So we'll see, but it's a long season. They're 4-0. That's all you need to win, and we'll see. They need two more wins to get to 6-0, and then that's when the real season starts for the Eagles.
yeah. You know, we talked about it all off season, and it's funny how quickly, as soon as the season starts, for anything, we forget about what we talked about in the off season, as if like we had a realistic expectation, and then panic button gets smashed as soon as certain things go wrong. It's a very and young Eagles defense with a lot of new pieces. Um, the D line we knew was going to be great. We never worry about that. You still had Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, Hassan Reddick, Josh Sweat holding it down. We knew Jalen Carter was going to be really talented. But I don't know why anybody's surprised that the Eagles have let up some passing yards thus far. First off, you had the injury to Nakobe Dean, your starting best linebacker. So then you had to kind of play carousel there in the middle of the field. Bradbury missed a week with a concussion. Sidney Brown out. Josh Jobe is now the corner because Avonte Maddox is out. Josh Jobe, I don't know what they're seeing in practice. I don't know why we haven't tried Kelly Ringo. If anything, he at least has chemistry with some of these guys. So I'd love to see him out there. But again, young team, a lot of new pieces. We said that the beginning of the season was going to be used to figure it out. And that's what's happening. It's being used to figure it out. So I'm not going to hit the panic button on a team that's 4-0, right? Another 4-0 team that is more tight and has their stuff together just a little bit better at this point in the season is the San Francisco 49ers. They are what they are. Outside of quarterback, they easily have the most talented roster in the NFL. Quarterback's a very important position, obviously. Christian McCaffrey has one hell of a case to be MVP at this point in the season. What did he have? 4 touchdowns this Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
They handle the Cardinals, and it's nothing to brag about because you're supposed to handle the Cardinals. But I think it speaks volumes to the difference between Dallas and the Niners. Dallas goes in the way that their organization is and their head coach and quarterback, and they lose to Arizona. In San Francisco, while Arizona is competitive for a lot of the game, they make it feel like they're never in it and they handle them. To me, it just speaks volumes to the difference of legit versus the Dallas Cowboys, who got to play Daniel Jones, Zach Wilson, Mac Jones, and Josh Dobbs to start the season, and everybody says their defense is elite.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And now they get Brock
Just wait.
Purdy, who, is the best quarterback they faced all year, is Brock Purdy. And we're going to be over a month into the season. But I digress. And for the Niners, Deebo Samuel, he was out there, but he wasn't really playing. A little bit of a decoy game. Brandon Ayuk, he has a really solid day. George Kittle. This team is so complete. I still have the same questions I had at the start of the season, and they're not going anywhere. For the Niners fans, the Niners believers, I get it. This is probably going to piss you off. But until I see Brock Purdy be able to show up in a meaningful playoff game against a real opponent, not the Seahawks, who he showed up against last year, who had a really bad secondary. Dallas, he didn't really show up against. Dak just no-showed harder than him. What was that, 17-13? I mean, you put up 17 in a playoff game. That's nothing to, when your defense forced multiple turnovers, that's nothing for me to be like, yeah, you're the guy. And then, of course, in Philly, he was getting dominated and then had the UCL injury. They haven't lost a regular season game that he's been quarterback. So, he wins. But, in that Shanahan offense, it's made pretty easy for you in the regular season. I'm interested to see Sunday Night Football this upcoming week versus Dallas. You know, if Brock Purdy goes out there and really has an impressive game, then maybe I'll look at him differently. But even if the Niners win this game, and it's again like another 17-10, I'm not going to look at Brock Purdy as an elite quarterback. I refuse. So the Niners, they got a complete team, but by no means do I have them as just this unstoppable force. I do worry about what they got at the head of the table at the quarterback.
Yeah, bro. For me, I think this is maybe the first week where like I am a little bit worried playing them possibly in the NFC Championship because they looked really good Sunday. George Kittle and Debo, they combined I think for 2 catches. Like they didn't do anything and they still it was Ayuk and McCaffrey all game. Defense is super sound, and for me, it's one of those things how like you said, Purdy is the key to their offense and their team, and this Sunday's a big test. I think we'll get a real answer between the Cowboys and the Niners, and whoever comes out on top of that game, I think, is probably the biggest threat to the Eagles, obviously. But because we haven't seen it from either team really this year, and I think that's the biggest thing. So for me, they took care of business against the Cardinals, but this Sunday's a huge test. Is it in Dallas or
It's in
San
San
Fran?
Francisco.
Okay, so I'd probably take San Fran. I would hope San Fran wins, but if they win
Yeah,
convincingly, the
it's tough to
Niners,
have a
like we'll
hope
we'll
in
see.
this game as an Eagles fan because
Yeah.
you never want to root for Dallas, but if San Francisco loses and we win, that's
Mm,
huge for us to get the 1 seed. We would much
yeah.
rather the NFC playoffs go through Philadelphia again. Um, and I'm not, I don't want what I said to be misconstrued. I do think the Niners could potentially beat this Eagles team in a playoff game. Last year, the level that the Eagles were playing at, I said, no way. Where we're at right now, they certainly could. They have the weapons that, Brock Purdy just needs to game manage very well. We watched Sam Howell almost lead the game winning drive. So, what I'm saying isn't that the Eagles are invincible. What I'm saying is I'm not bought into Brock Purdy going on a playoff run where he beats the Cowboys defense, he beats the Eagles defense, and then in a Super Bowl he goes and out duels Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen. I'm not bought into all three of those things happening in a row at this point in time. And that's what you play the game for. Uh, a team that you really like, the Ravens. They moved to 3-1. They had a dominating weekend, a 28-3 victory. Uh, Here's what I'll say: the win itself, it it doesn't hold as much value, obviously, with Deshaun Watson out. However, the part of the game that I want to focus on, it would not have mattered if Deshaun Watson was out there. What Lamar Jackson did against the Browns defense, which was widely considered as top five, Lamar Jackson is back in MVP conversations. That's what I will say. Lamar Jackson, I believe he's averaging like 7 yards per rush. Um, the designed quarterback runs for him this year have been reminiscent of his MVP-esque season, but at a safer clip. They have a ton of designed action for him in the red zone. He has 4 rushing touchdowns this year, which is more than he's had the last 2 previous years. And I get it, there's been injury, but he played 8 games in those seasons. He's got a rushing touchdown per game. The weapons, OBJ's not even out there. J.K. Dobbins done for the year. This is a team that we talked about going and getting Jonathan Taylor potentially. We'll see. Mark Andrews had a good game, 2 touchdowns. Zay Flowers, he looks legit. The Ravens defense, it's there, but it's Lamar. And, the guy wins. His completion percentage is over 70% this year. That is insanely high. Um, and, it's a month. We have a month sample size. So I don't want to say he can't keep it up. It's been a month. And he's doing it against some good defenses. Now they play Pittsburgh this week with no Kenny Pickett. Odds are Baltimore rolls and takes a firm grasp on this AFC North. Is it time to start talking about Baltimore in the realm of going to the Super Bowl with Kansas City, with Buffalo? Um, you know, if you want to throw the Dolphins in there, sure. But Baltimore has a real case to be the third best team in the AFC, and you could rank them higher. And, I wouldn't be that mad at you. But is it time for them to be in the tier with Kansas City, with Buffalo?
Yeah, I mean they were my Super Bowl pick coming out of the AFC this year, and they're looking really good. I'm not sure if you saw the game, but he had an awesome throw to Mark Andrews that looked like the
Oh,
Big Ben to
someone said he had Hall of Fame
Holmes.
needle threader.
Yeah, it was nice, bro. But like you said, that OC, I don't know what they're doing there, but they look very good,
The
and
new
I think
the new
it's
Georgia OC. I always
yeah,
pronounce his name wrong. So I think it's Todd Monken, but
yeah, something like that. But I think the biggest thing is like we mentioned, like this is probably the best offense he's had in his whole career, and I think it's paying dividends, on just how good he's playing, and it really helps the defense because the defense, they have some injuries, so they need some help on the offense, but they had a bunch of people out on Sunday, and they still steamrolled the Browns, and we
yeah.
know Watson didn't play, but like you said, that defense is no joke.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
And
not
Lamar
gonna
was
I'm
like
not gonna
just
like praise the defense
killing it,
too
man.
heavily. But
Hmm.
you gave up 3 points to an NFL offense. Granted, no Nick Chubb, no Deshaun Watson, so
Yeah,
it is what
yeah.
it is.
So if you're a Browns fan, you might have to hit the panic button because losing Chubb hurts, but having Watson hurt like that, and it's tough because you need a win. You're not in the NFC, you're in the AFC, and there's at least 6, 7 teams that could easily take your spot in the playoffs.
Yeah, the Browns, they feel like they'll be fine. As long as and Watson was a game time decision, so I expect him to play this week. This game versus Baltimore is a game that they could have lost anyways, even if Watson played. That's why on Thursday, Friday, when the reports came out, I started throwing money on Baltimore. They were plus money. I said, this is easy. Like, this is a game that I think Baltimore could win outright if Deshaun Watson was healthy. Like, even if he plays, he's not fully healthy, and they don't have a run game to supplement that shoulder injury. Um, so they hold him out, and then Baltimore easily gets the win. I, you know, like you said, the Browns, somebody will take their playoff spot. I think the Browns are still in a secure spot to be a wild card team. However, this win, could matter at the end of the season when it comes to that division. And Baltimore holding it down, the playoffs might run through Baltimore. And, that's a real possibility at this point in time. But Lamar's got to stay healthy, man. We've seen this before ever since he came in the league. The first month of the year, they win a ton of games. It's a matter of does he make it to the third and fourth month of the year. So we'll see there. I want to close out the show here with a little segment. We're a month into the season. Season's over. Whose season is over? So I'm going to pull up the standings here. I'm going to go through teams who potentially their season is over, and we'll just say if we think that it is. So in the AFC East, we know that Miami and Buffalo, obviously not. The New York Jets at 1-3. Is their season over?
Not yet.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
I think with Zach Wilson looking very good, surprisingly, and that defense is good, they might have something cooking, but we need at least one more week to really count them out.
Yeah, if Zach Wilson had played bad again against the Chiefs, I might have said yes. But we knew the first part of their schedule was the toughest. We were talking about it all offseason. The Jets might start slow. The Jets might start 2-4. They're on pace starting 2-4. And we wouldn't have said it was over if they had Aaron Rodgers. The New England Patriots, they're cooked, bro. They're so cooked. That season is cooked.
They're cooked. Mac Jones is cooked. Like Bill Belichick is cooked. That
Yeah,
whole city is cooked.
that their season is over. Their offense is maybe the worst in the NFL. Mac Jones is gone. Yeah, for the Patriots, I will say, at least it comes at a time when a loaded quarterback class is on the way. So
Facts.
there could be some savior. Is the Cincinnati Bengals season over? I don't think so, right?
No, you
I
can't
had
count
to
them out
ask because
yet.
they were 1-3.
Not
I
yet.
had to
Almost, almost, but not yet.
ask. The Las Vegas Raiders.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
think
mean,
so.
I
I
don't.
never had high hopes with them,
Yeah,
so that's probably why.
yeah, they're 1-3. They're not like a fun team. Jimmy G should be back next week. I don't want to say it's completely over. They could battle for a wild card spot, I guess. But I truthfully never thought their season was going to start.
Yeah.
So, uh, if you believed in them at the start of the year, I'd say their season's not over. If you didn't, I'd say their season's over. The Denver Broncos, they get that win over Chicago. Russ plays a good game. Can they bounce back?
I mean, their offense looks great, but like a Sean Payton team always has, their defense is terrible, and I think for that reason, I'm gonna say they're cooked. They did beat the Bears, but they're the Bears, so
Yeah.
I'm counting them out. But prove me wrong. Let's see what happens.
I mean, they have given up the most points in the league, obviously, with that 70-point game. But, they've scored just as many points as Kansas
Yeah,
City has
offense
this
looks
season.
great.
So, I won't say they're done. They could potentially battle back for a wild card spot with Russ, with Peyton. The New York Giants, that season's over.
That that contract is cooked.
The next 2 weeks, they go to Miami and then they play Buffalo.
Buffalo. Yep.
They're going to be 1-5. That season's over.
Mm-hmm.
The Giants are done. The Minnesota Vikings, 1-3.
I would say not yet. They got a big win Sunday. It's not looking great, but maybe some momentum from the win.
This week they
And
host the Chiefs.
yeah, so we'll see. We'll see on
Yeah, in the
that.
NFC, I'll say that their season's not over because they have a
Yeah.
veteran quarterback, they have an
Mhm.
offensive-minded team, and they have experience. But it doesn't feel great.
Doesn't look good.
The 0-4 Chicago Bears.
Well, if they weren't cooked last week, they are certainly barbecued after last week's performance.
Yeah,
And I picked them to win, and they
they're
had it, but
they're
they
done.
just
But I want to ask you, with Justin Fields' performance, if he continues to play somewhat like that throughout the season, he has a good year. What do you do with those top two picks?
you
Let's
gotta
say,
take
do you take Caleb Williams
you gotta
or
take Caleb.
or
Oh yeah, you tried it.
what's the haul you could get for Caleb Williams? Because if Justin Fields has a good year, can you convince yourself that we'll take Marvin Harrison with the number 2, get him that true wide receiver 1, and with the slew of picks that we got, we can fill out a roster? Because their roster clearly needs work. They are not a quarterback away. Justin Fields this past weekend looked pretty good, man.
It is against Denver, and for me, I think the biggest thing is like if let's say Caleb Williams is the next Patrick Mahomes. Would you rather have Justin Fields and a bunch of talent, or would you rather have Marvin
Yeah.
Harrison and him?
No,
And I think that's
I do understand.
I don't know if
And
you
you
could
can
pass that
always
up.
flip Justin Fields for picks as well. It's not like
Yeah,
he's not going to generate something. But it was just hey, Justin Fields might make it an interesting conversation. The Carolina Panthers cooked.
they're cooked.
Yeah,
Yeah.
don't even have their own pick though, so
They're certainly.
certainly cooked. And then the Arizona Cardinals, Kyler not off the pup, so probably cooked.
Yeah, they're cooked, but they're playing a lot better than a lot of people thought. So I'll give them credit
Yeah,
there.
and I mean they got their pick in Houston's pick, so
Hmm.
they got some pieces where they could potentially retool. So I just thought that was an interesting thing to look at to end the show here. So we decided that the Cardinals were never going to take off. They were cooked. The Panthers, the team that I picked to make the playoffs. To be fair, Brian Burns and J.C. Horn have played a combined half game, and I thought those guys were going to anchor that defense. The Bears cooked. The Giants cooked. The Raiders, we said cooked, but to be fair, they came into the season cooked in our eyes. And the New England Patriots cooked. So be sure to let us know in the comment section below who's cooked, who's not. Make sure you give us a follow on socials. Make sure you follow the College Kids for all your sports betting needs. MLB playoffs getting going. You want to win some bets during this Red October. Make sure you give them a follow until tomorrow for NBA Eastern Conference preview. Ball boys moving up to 3 a week. We will catch you guys then. Peace.
Deuces.